Okay, so you're here because your dog possibly has a recall that's a little bit shite. I'm going to start with the harsh truth about recall. Your dog doesn't want to come back to you because he thinks you're a little bit of a dick. That might be a little bit harsh, so I will qualify it. Probably thinks you're a bit boring. I'll come back to that in a moment. Nearly everyone I work with always wants to know, how do I get a better recall? What they really ask is, how do I get my dog back in emergencies? Everyone's worried about their dog getting hurt. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as an emergency recall. Either your dog wants to come back to you, or it doesn't. What you can't do is effectively create a command for your dog, which is something like, hey dog, sorry Bells, lay down. Just trod on my dog. Could you please come back in this particular occasion because there's a car coming? I know you ignore me the rest of the time, but this time there's a car, so I really mean it. No such thing. You either have a really good recall or you have a shite recall. There's absolutely nothing in between. Now, the bit that's missed out, long before you start teaching the mechanics of how to get the dog to come back and so on, is the groundwork before that. It's what we call engagement. The dog has to want to come back to you. Recall is effectively a competition between you, which hopefully should win, and everything else out there, be it livestock, traffic, bicycles, someone else's ball and lobber, next door's cat, everything else. You have to be more interested than all those things at all times. And frankly, if your dog mugs you off on a recall for some of these things occasionally, you're losing that competition. So how do you make yourself more interesting than everything else out there? There's a few things that dogs value, and you need to control those way more completely, particularly on walks, but starting indoors, for your dog to value you more than everything else. So, food, great example. Every dog has a hunger drive. I can do another video about that another time. You want your food? Engage with me, look at me, focus on me, ignore everything else. If the dog's hungry enough and you've got that food, it's going to do that. I'd even go as far as saying with food to ditch the food bowl. None of this putting the food on the floor for free. No silver service. Come to me, get your food. Engage with me, get your food. You become more interested in that way rather than just their waiter. Fun, toys, excitement. The dog shouldn't get any of that anywhere else. You need to be the sole source of that. Don't leave the toys lying around. Get them out when you want to play and you play, then the toys go away. Dog sees another dog. If that's exciting, dog doesn't get to play with that other dog. Meet people on the streets or in the park. The dog wants to get a fuss from them. Don't let them. You are the source of fun. You control everything. Use it as a reward. The less the dog has of it for free, the more powerful that reward becomes, the more powerful and more interested you become. Affection is the next one on the list. I have a rule. Only for me and never for free. So stop giving it away and stop other people giving dogs, your dogs the affection that they want. The final one is freedom. The more freedom your dog has, the more it's got to stimulate it and the more interesting that environment comes. So that has to be earned. Your dog's, Bella, lay down. Down. Good example of freedom. My dog heard a dog barking, wanted to go investigate. Doesn't, my job. The more freedom your dog's got, the more stimulation it's going to get from elsewhere. You don't want that. So the dog starts here, and when it's engaging with you, looking up at you, it can earn a little bit more. Can it do the same thing there? Can it then do it over there? Can it then do it on a long line? Can it then do it off lead? But it's got to be checking in with you regularly and losing interest in its environment. All these resources you need to control. If any of them are more appealing to the dog and it's getting them elsewhere, you're losing this battle. You've got to get all this engagement stuff right before you go on to teaching the mechanics of the recall. It's that simple. Have a practice of that. Part 2 will be all about the mechanics, but get this bit right and watch your relationship with your dog change quite significantly. So, what have you been waiting for? Dogs? Dogs? Ready? Ready? Go! The power's of the toys. She wants this one. Good done.